Okay, back with more thoughts on version 4. Now, we took a look in the last video of the rule booklet here. I like it. Give it a thumbs up for that. Now, also, if you have an iPad or a tablet or something, you can get onto the website, do Forces of War. I believe it's called Forces of War. Anyway, it's the digital version, Flames War Digital, I guess. And if you don't have a store near you, okay, you can't get it, they don't have any more, all you have to do is just go on here and just download. It's for free, and you can get the rule booklet. I have it. I don't know what happened to mine disappeared. Anyway, so I should have the whole thing. The great thing about having it on the tablet, when you are looking through a rule booklet, you can go through the index, which is pretty good. It's small, so you should be able to find it. However, when you go onto the iPad, there is a search function, so you can search for it, a rule, and it'll go right to it. So you're looking for assault, just type in assault, and there you go. So I'll wait for this to download, and we'll look at that later. So the first thing that I wanted to bring in here is Desert Rats. This is the new Army book. You can see here, it is much thinner than the Africa book. This was the first book I got, and I made a whole big stink that they should do it for the late war and whatever. They should do this hardcover, just massive book. I just loved it, loved going through it, just sit there and, just, it's like reading a novel. I mean, I just really, really enjoyed it. However, the Battlefront appears to be going in a different direction, more towards a simple type of game where beginners can get it. Because if you're a beginner, and I say, okay, just go ahead and pick out a force from Africa Corps or from North Africa, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? Look at all these rules. I don't know what I'm looking at. Here's the force structure. There's just so much in here. As a beginner, I would, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd, especially when it comes to this stuff. So I'm going to love it. But most people are going to look at this and just see just a ton of information. They're going to get overloaded until they get used to it. So I understand that newer players, especially younger players, are not going to get into this because it's just so much going on here, so much information. It's really impossible. For us vets, we love it because we got all these options. Look at the different divisions. It's just awesome. Love it. The new books, even though they're much smaller, they're also cheaper. Now, this used to be $50, and then they went down to $30. And these softback ones used to be, I believe, $30, and then now they're down to $25. These are $25. Now, so apples to apples, or 20. I'm sorry, these are 20, and these were 20, or 20 now. So it's an apples to apples. So $20 for this, $20 for this. A lot more information on these guys. When you got one of these books, you got all the fluff, you got all these units. There was so much stuff, like 81 pages of stuff, even winter weather rules. You had two different, you had the Americans, you had the Germans. So I mean, you can play that battle and have all of it. Here you just have the British forces. So it's just for the British people that want to play. And if you look at the entire thing here, it's, even with all the fluff and the painting guide and everything, it's 44 pages, 40, it's advertisement stuff. So not even half the size of this. And it's even less information, less than half. As we go through it, you'll see what I'm talking about. However, it is hardback. And here is one of the differences. First of all, it should last longer, looks nicer, feels nicer. But if I want to leave this open on the table, can't. If I want to take my Desert Rats and put it off to the side and leave it open to a page, I can. And I like that. I appreciate that. So even though I'm not getting quite as much, having the hardback, it's just higher quality. It's very specific. So you're not getting a lot of information for your money, but you are getting a really nice book. So I think that works out. And since they want to give you less information, because they want the newer players to get into it, then this is what they're going to do. So here's what you get in the book. You open up the book, you got your basic information. Here are the special rules. Now, something that really put people off about the special rules is it's really a description of the rules. It doesn't tell you what the rule is. So unless it tells you later in the book, which it doesn't, that's a problem I have with this book. Or you got to go to the rule booklet, or you have the card, and on the back of the card, it'll have the rules. But you know what? For those of us that don't have the Battlefront official cards, where this is just a card I made off the internet and printed it out, it has all the information, but it doesn't have the secondary weapon information. And over here, there's no explanation. If I look at the grants, here's secondary weapon information, and there's no rule there. So when you get the regular cards, it'll have the rule in the back. If you have the mid-war book, which I don't right now, it'll have the rule in there, but it's just bad form, I thought. They should definitely put the rule in there. And then maybe they can put, it's, for protected ammo, it's on the card. Just put in parentheses, on card already. Secondary weapon, on back of card. Something like that. Because, if you're printing out your cards, until they put out their own cards where you can buy them separately, they should have the rule in there, and I thought that was a bad deal there. Okay, so you've got your special, then you got your fluff talking about the battles of North Africa, and nice maps, usual quality of Battlefront, and then they show you the tanks or the units that you have in this book, just so that you can become familiar. And this is really good for beginners because they can become familiar. Okay, this is what this tank does, and what it has, and historical information, and so you can become familiar, so you don't feel like an idiot. If you're going through the North Africa book, and you see, you got these Panzers here, and you're like, okay, Panzer J late, Panzer L, and I really don't know what that is. As a beginner, veteran, we have an understanding, and we know to turn in the back, but still, we're not really sure what the roles of all these tanks and stuff are. So that was really good that they had that in there. And of course, they got the picture. Now, force structure. For the new version 4, you can pick as many of these as possible, as you want. You can only pick one of these boxes to throw in there. So, I mean, you can have a 6-pounder, you can have a 17-pounder, you could have a Bofors, you could have a Hurricane, but you can't have 2 sets of Hurricanes. You can't have 2 sets. It's just, once you use up that box, it's used. Here, you can use up this box again and again and again, from what I understand. I think that's a mistake. I think they should, say, you could have one of these types of box per 50 points or something like that. That would make more sense, because as I was listening to the podcast of somebody like, oh, I'll just get 50 Stewarts or something. That'll ruin the game. I hate it when people do that, where they just use an unrealistic force so that they can win a tournament. And you need to be aware of that Battlefront, that you're going to have people who are just going to get boxes and boxes of Honey Stewarts or something, and just swarm everybody. And it's not going to be fun or fair. Learn your lesson from the early war desert, and so that won't happen again. So basically what it is that these guys don't count towards morale. The old way of morale was if you lost over half your platoons, then you roll for your check. Now what they do is if you lose all your forces, then you're done. So, and these are basically companies. You could be a Grand Company, and so now you can get a Crusader and a Grand Company if you want to. And that's why it's more like a battalion level game. Then once you take a look at the grants. This is what you get: HQ, and then a grant, and a grant or Crusader or Honey as your mandatory platoons, and they're called units now. Okay, so you've got, if we go back here, everything here is your force. These are formations, and these are units. This is a unit, and the HQ is a unit. So now, if you get down to 1 unit, then you have to do a last stand check to see if they run away. And if they run away, then that formation runs away. And when you get, within the unit, if you get down to one tank or one gun or two infantry, then they do a roll to see if they run away. Okay, no more of this less than half business. It's basically when you get withered down to almost one, that's when they start running away. And these guys do not count down here. Even the support over here. Any support does not count towards morale. Okay, so looking through, you've got all the stats here that you'd have on your unit cards. So looks very similar to the unit card that I have here. And the unit cards are great because they put everything here. You can put it on the board so you don't have to flip back and forth or make a sheet or whatever. These things are great. So I thought that was a good idea. I just wish they would sell them separately. And that's pretty much it. And of course you got all your units and then how to paint them, and that's it. So is it worth the $20? I mean, you can get it for $15 on the iPad, and I think it's a good idea. I wish there was a little bit more, but there's a plan to this, and they want it to be simple. People who are panicking that, hey, I want something like North Africa with all these units and they're all different and whatever. But what ended up happening was that if you were the British, would you buy Crusaders or Grants if you're starting an Africa force? No, you would get the Shermans. This book does not have Shermans, so people are going to get the Grants. They're going to get the Crusaders, and they're going to use them in desert war. Those are the ones that were used most. Now, if they do what I think they're going to do, where they're going to add cards, another book to supplement this book. This is basically like your vanilla book. It's just the generic forces that people are going to want to play, and that's it. This consider this the foundation of what the Desert Rats are going to be. Not necessarily the 7th Armored Division. It's just the foundation, and basically for people to get into, it's the intro book to the Desert Rats, and I expect something else like these books to add to the Desert Rats, or even cards. So I think having the cards, and I'll get to that in my next video, that it's they're going to be a good idea if they follow what I think they're going to do. So overall, I'm very impressed. I like it. I like the way the new force structure works, and I played a couple games with it, and it's fun, it's fast, and so far they're doing a great job. All right, so stay tuned for my next video. I'm going to go into the cards.